Hello. I have finally reached the end of my wedding garter and I have joined it together and I have just sewn the pairs in, and I am now thinking about how I want to finish my lace. Now, you have the choice of an ordinary reef knot. I'm using silk thread, so if you want to tie a reef knot as you do regularly, you will need to tie 1.5 reef knots. So you would do right over left, left over right, and then right over left again, because the reef knot comes in 2 parts. So you want to do 1.5 reef knots. Because silk is slippery, you want to just add that little bit of extra security. But I'm going to finish this as a Brugge finish, and because it's a stronger finish and is perfect for anything that is likely to be any lace that's likely to be washed or have a lot of movement to it, because it's a stronger finish than just doing a reef knot. The beauty about working it on a wedding garter is that when the wedding garter gets pulled up with the elastic, the finish actually won't see, it will be hidden within the folds of the lace. So it's perfect for using on this particular thing. So what I have done is I have sewn all my pairs in, but I haven't tied anything. Now, I always do this anyway, because the minute you start sewing in, tying a pair, sewing in, tying a pair, and then you find that you've made a mistake, you will have to undo all your reef knots. And if you've tied your reef knot and then cut it straight away, that's going to be a bit of an issue, because then you've run out of thread. So whenever I finish, I always sew everything in, make sure everything has been sewn into the correct place, then I tie, and then I cut with a length and I trim once my lace is off the pillow. So that's the first handy tip that I've got. Now, with a Brugge finish, I am going to go in 2 directions here, because I started this on a V, because this creates like a chain stitch across the back of my lace. So I'm going to come down this side and then back up to the top of the heart, and then I'm going to come down this side and come back up, so that my V is a straight V as opposed to curving round where you go around the dip. So I'm going to first of all do this side. Now I'm starting on the left, because when I've finished with my final pair, I can then run it down with a needle, run the threads down for a little way, which will then also secure my ends in. And this end here is denser than this end here. So I'm going to start on the left hand side. When I come to do this side, I'm going to start on the right hand side, because I can run my threads down in amongst my cross stitch. It's a precaution, because obviously when you're wearing a wedding garter, it does have a lot of friction, because it's sitting against the leg, it's going to be rubbing against the leg and the wedding dress. So I'm just being a little bit overcautious, to be honest with you. So the direction I'm traveling in, I'm going to go from the left to the right. So I'm starting on the left hand side and I'm moving to the right all the way down here. So I've decided that I'm moving left to right. So the first knot I am going to tie is my right over left. So this is my version of Brugge finish. I'm sure that somebody is going to say, oh, but I do it like this. So I'm just saying this is how I personally do it. So because I'm moving from left to right, I'm going to tie the first part of my reef knot right over left. So it is opposite to the direction you are traveling in. So there's my right hand bobbin, is going over my left through the loop, and I'm tying that first knot up. Now this is really important, because if you don't do this correctly, your threads will appear on top of the chain stitch, and we want them to appear under the chain stitch. So I have tied my reef knot right over left, and I'm going to want to pick up my next bobbin. So what I'm going to do is lift my left hand up and slide the bobbin in my right hand underneath. I'm then going to take my next bobbin, and then I'm going to tie right over left again. Now if you notice, this bobbin here with the red, gold and green on it is in my left hand, and this one with the blue spangle is in my right hand. So I'm going to tie my right over left and through, and then I'm going to pull that knot up. And what you will notice is that my bobbins have swapped places, they've swapped hands. So I'm then going to lift up my left hand and slide my right bobbin underneath. I'm then going to take my next bobbin. So we've got the blue spangle and we've got this lovely Stuart Johnson green bobbin. So I'm going to tie my right over left. So I'm just holding my bobbins up with the spangles up away from me. I'm going to lay them across and lift my thread over and pull it. And you can see that the bobbins have swapped places. You don't want to work all the way down with the same bobbin. It has to change places. I'm now going to lift up my left hand and slide the bobbin in my right hand underneath. So I'm then going to take my next thread. I'm going to, so we've got the green bobbin and we've got a bobbin here from a lace day. So no, it's Christmas. I'm going to put it over the bobbin and lift my thread over the top, pull it through, and we now have, this one's quite easy because I've got my green thread. So I'm just going to pull it up. So I'm just seeing if it's got caught on, it has, it's got caught on a thread. So I'm just going to, I think these bobbins are actually a little bit too long. So let me, so you can tell it's got caught because when I'm pulling, I'm hoping you can see it, when I'm pulling, it's pulling off to one side and that is where it has got caught around a pin. So now I can, there we are. So now it's come off the pin, it pulls up straight. I'm then going to lift up my left hand and slide the bobbin underneath. Now, if you can, try and keep these bobbins in order. So I'm now picking up my second green one, right over left, through the thread and pull up. Lift up my left hand and put the bobbin underneath. So you can see now, and I've got a piece of something there, that I have swapped my bobbins over. So I'm bringing in the next one. So I'm picking up, making sure it is the next thread, and then I'm doing right over left, and you can see that my green thread has moved. So I'm lifting up my left hand and placing it underneath, pulling in my next bobbin. Now where the gimp is just going to be a little bit lumpier because obviously the gimp thread is a little bit thicker. So, oh, let me do that again. Okay, so that's my right over left, through the loop, and I'm keeping all my threads really loose. There's no tension in, and I'm just easing it up, not pulling drastically. We're dealing with silk here. It does slide, so it's the perfect thread to work with, to be honest. Really love working with silk. Okay, here's the next one. So we're right over left, and I'm not pulling on my bobbins, I'm actually pulling on my thread. I use my thread to tension up, not the bobbins. So lift up your left hand and put the bobbin in your right hand underneath. So I'm just going to move these up. That's it. And I'm hoping at some point you're going to start seeing the chain stitch. Oh, sorry, my thread's just got caught around a pin. Okay, so I'm taking my next bobbin, so right over left, through the loop, and then tension up. Set. So then lift up for your left hand and put the right bobbin underneath. So now this is all going to look a little bit loose at the moment because I'm only doing the one part of the knot, and it will tension up when I come back the other way. So I'm going to continue doing my left over rights. No, sorry, my rights over lefts. Now on this next one, you'll stitch from this pin to the next pin is going to be bigger than these previous ones because these ones have all been really close together. But this next one, I'm now starting to reach the point where the work opens out. So just bear that in mind. This stitch is going to be longer than the previous ones. But I'm still doing my right over left and then tightening it, lifting up my left and putting the bobbin in my right hand underneath. So each time I take my new pair, I'm just checking, I'm just pulling it, tensioning it up, pulling it tighter, and just checking that I've got the right bobbin. What is also really nice is if you have a memorable bobbin like this, you will notice if you're not swapping it. The other tip I would say is if you ever need to put this bobbin down, which is the one that is in the process of making the next stitch, I always put it down and then I put a pin through it so that you know when you come back, if the phone rings or something like that, if you put the pin in this bobbin, when you come back you think, ah, okay, that's the one I need in my left hand. So at the moment I'm just trying to check in these next two. So I've popped it down, put my pin through the spangle, so now when I pick it up, once I've found the right bobbin, I can then go, that's my bobbin in my left hand, and off we go again. So it's just a little bit of a safety precaution there. Otherwise you've got so many bobbins that you think, oh, which is the next one? The other thing that I am doing is that I have all my bobbins on my stitch holder, and I'm just taking them off one pair at a time. Now if you wanted to, the pairs that you're discarding over here on the left, you could put them on a stitch holder, but again, every time you put this bobbin down, make sure you put it a pin through the spangle so you know which one it is. It's very easy to actually lose this the bobbin that's in your left hand. So these are my last two down this side because as I said before, I'm coming to on this other side. I don't want to take, because it creates a chain stitch. If I was to go from this one to over here, you would end up with a line across here. So I'm coming down this side on this one, and then on this side I'm going to come down to this point, and there won't be anything here. This hole will be the same repeated as it is all the way through the pattern. So don't Don't be afraid to split your sewings up and do one bit in one place and another bit in another way. It just means then your pattern is separate, and it doesn't distort the pattern of your lace. So this is my second to last one, so I'm going to do that as normal. So there's my reef knot. I'm going to lift my left hand up, put the bobbin in my right hand down, and now this bobbin is the last one in my row. Now this last stitch is going to be slightly different because I've come down the row and I now need to go back up it. So I'm going to do my right over left as I've been doing and tighten it up. Now this is the point where if normally, as you have been doing, you would lift up your left hand and put the bobbin in your right hand underneath. But because I've reached the end, what I'm going to do is I am now going to reverse. So I'm working from the right to the left. So I'm going to tie my left over right. So I'm going to do my left over my right. And that means that that final knot has a complete reef knot on it. I now need to lift up the bobbin in my right hand and put the bobbin in my left underneath. So I'm just going to move those out of the way. So there's my bobbin. So I'm going to now start working back up the row, and this is the point where you will start to see it all tension up and the chain stitch appear. So I've been doing right over left, I'm now doing left over right. So notice I started off with the little bobbin in my left hand. It has now moved to my right hand. So I'm going to tension this one up, lift my right hand up and put the bobbin underneath. Take the next bobbin, left over right. So you can see this is the one in my right hand, and I'm putting this bobbin over the top of it, put my thread over and pull in. And then I'm going to tighten it up, lift my right hand and put the bobbin in my left hand underneath. So now the next one. So this is the one that's in my left hand and my right hand, and this bobbin, if I've done it correctly, this bobbin should end up in my left hand and then be discarded. So I'm doing left over right, pulling it through. Now this is jumping from one rose ground to the next, so this is the point where the stitch is going to be quite long. There's the bobbin in my left hand, lift up my right hand bobbin and slide the other bobbin underneath. Now just bear in mind that this bobbin stays in my right hand, it doesn't move from my right hand. I don't switch it then back to my left, it stays there. So I'm doing left over right, pull it through, tension it up, lift up my right bobbin and put my left bobbin underneath. Right, I have 2 bobbins left, so this second to last one is going to be worked as normal. And I now have the last bobbin in this row. So I'm going to tie my left over right, pull it up, and I'm then going to do a right over left. So at each end there is a complete reef knot on that very last pair. So that is all of my threads knotted. So I'm just going to move these over here. I am going to cut them, but I'm hoping that everything is falling off the bobbins. Now you're probably not going to, oh yes, I think hopefully you can see. What's happened is that there is this chain stitch up your lace, and all of the threads are coming out from underneath that chain stitch. So that means that when you come to cut the ends off closer, you can get quite close to these because they're hidden underneath the chain stitch. So let me just cut these. Now I always leave a good length, because apart from half of my bobbins have now dropped off the table, so I like to trim mine off the pillow, not on it, because I think you've got more control when you cut your threads off the pillow. But the other thing, ooh, just dropped some bobbins. Hang on, let me put these down. So I trim these when the lace is off the pillow. I never cut while I have the lace on the pillow, because you've got no control as such, because this is a very static, very flat area, and it's very close. You've got pins all around, so I would always cut this off of the pillow. So I cut them with a length. It also means that if the worst happens and you suddenly realise after all the precautions that you've suddenly sewn something into the wrong place, these bits can be then put onto a bobbin with some extra thread, and you'd then be able to work them, undo it all and work them. Whereas if you've cut your lace really close to the ends, right up against your lace, and then you find you've got an issue, you're going to need to backtrack quite a way. I've never done it and I don't want to. So that's the first bit done. And what I'm going to do, I want all of these threads to come over in this direction. You don't want them laying in that direction, because when you cut them off, the ends will lay in that direction. So I'm going to put them on a pin and just pin them down in this direction, and I'm training my threads to sit in that direction, because I always leave my lace 24 hours after finishing it. I know this is a bit of one of those subjects that you either do or you don't, but I just like to think it all just wants to settle. The threads need to know where they're going, and this is a great way of training all your threads to sit in this direction, rather than just cutting it off and letting them go wild. I don't know if you have wild threads, but it sounds good. So we'll leave this 24 hours after finishing it, unless of course I'm stiffening it and then it comes off straight away. But if I'm not stiffening it, I would definitely leave it 24 hours. So I'm now going to come down this side. So I'm going to start on this inside edge here. So let me find the first couple of pairs. Now this one is going to be a little bit tighter because I have joined all of my pairs into this cross stitch area. So the only way I can tell is if I pull on them, it will pull the other thread. So okay, the direction we're moving in is right to left, so I'm going from the right hand side of my lace to the left hand side. So I am going to do the first part of my stitch as a left over right, because it's the opposite to the direction that I am working. Now I have no idea if this has any bearing. It's just something I've always done. So either somebody told me or I read it in a book, but I'm sure other people do it in different ways. But the first stitch I'm going to do, because I'm moving from right to left, I'm going to tie left over right. So there's my left bobbin over my right, thread it over and tie my first knot. Now, if you wanted to, you could actually push some of these pins down. I like to pull my threads like this when I've got a cross stitch bit, so that the knot actually goes all the way down. So I've done my left over right. I'm going to lift my right hand, put my left bobbin underneath, pull in the next one. So I'm just going to pop that down, pin in my spangle so I know that's my right bobbin, pull in the next two. Now I did, as I sewed them in, I did put them onto their hangers, so in theory they should all be in the right order. These hangers are a godsend. They're by Clover. Now some people have been charging quite a lot of money for these, but you don't have to. You should be able to get a pack of 2 relatively cheaply, but you will find them in the knitting section because they're actually a tool for knitting. But the beauty about these is that they open both ends, because you know full well that the bobbin you want, if you use ones which only open one end, the bobbin you want is on the other end. So I love these. I've got a lot of them. So that's my next bobbin. Here's my bobbin in my right hand. Here's my last one. Just going to pull that thread a little bit. Okay, so I'm going left over right and then tension up. So again, I'm going to pull it down that way, lift up my right hand and put the bobbin in my left hand underneath. Do the next one. That's it. Lift up. So I've done my left over right, lift up my right hand, put the bobbin underneath. So I'm just going to go all the way down. So what I'm checking for when I take my threads apart like this is that I'm checking that there are no twists on this pair, because what will happen is, just like in your lace, when you put a twist on a pair, you push the threads apart. So you don't want any twists when you tie your reef knot, because that stops the reef knot from sitting snugly against your lace. So I always split them open to just check that there's no twists on them. That I would do for both this type of tying off, but also if I'm just doing regular reef knot, I would always check that the pair had no twists on it. So I now have my final pair on this side. So this first one I'm going to tie as normal, like left over right. Lift it up my right hand and put it under. Now this last one I'm going to tie my left over right. Now instead of lifting up my right hand and putting it under, I'm going to put a full reef knot on this end one, because this is where I'm going to turn and go back up the row. So I'm then going to do my right over left. So there's my bobbin in my right hand, it's going over the left bobbin and pulling it up. Now I'm going to lift up my left hand and put the right bobbin underneath. Then I'm going to take the next bobbin, which I've put all my bobbins down in the right order. So I'm going to tie right over left, tighten it, lift up my left hand, right bobbin underneath. Now it's really important that you put the bobbin underneath, because this, by doing that movement, that is where you create the threads being underneath the chain stitch. If you just didn't put it underneath, the thread would appear at the top of the chain stitch above it. Oop, nearly did my left over right. That's what I mean about taking your time and not rushing this, because if you're anything like me, my rights and lefts are completely round the wrong way. So it's not worth rushing it. You've spent so many months making your lace, the last thing you want to do is do an awful finish. Right, so this is my last bobbin, so I'm going to tie right over left, tension it up, then I'm going to do left over right, and that is it. Now I can't remember if I did the extra one on the other end, but I'm not going to put an extra reef knot on this because I'm going to be sewing the ends down into this cloth stitch area. So I'm going to now cut all of these off. Now, one of the things that I do tend to do, and I strongly recommend it, is that as soon as you've cut your threads, as soon as you've tied your reef knot, cut your threads, because then you know when you come back, oh, those ones have been tied because I've cut them off. Because quite a few times I've had people say, have I tied these? And you can tell, but it makes your life easier to know that as soon as you tied your knots, your bobbins are coming off. So now I'm going to train these bobbins. I want these bobbins to lay this way because that's the direction that they're coming underneath the chain stitch. So I'm going to just wind them round a pin and put the pin in, and that is one half of my garter finished. So I'm just going to leave this sitting on my pillow for 24 hours, then I will take it off. And I recently got asked what I do for the inside, so I am actually going to make a quick video to show you how I do the ribbon and the elastic up the middle. So hopefully that makes sense, and that I have remembered my correct right over lefts and lefts over right, because believe me, when I'm doing round a roundabout, I cannot remember which is left and which is right. So thank you for watching. If you found this video useful, please like and subscribe. I hope that makes perfect sense to everybody, but if not, drop me a question in the bit below. Thanks for watching.